Every time there was a NZ census or any other like official document and it says like what ethnicity group are you, and it'll either be like Pacific or South Asian, and I've always usually ticked South Asian, but growing up and like filling forms I would write down like Fiji Indian, but then it was like my teachers just come to me and was like, oh no, you actually have to pick one of the other. So it's kind of like, I think it just depends on the person, their upbringing, and for them to actually decide what they want to identify, how they choose to identify with more. Because the culture itself, it involves, both Indian heritage and both Pacific heritage.
One of the things I found when I came here in 2019 was having my first approach with the system, where it identified me as something that I didn't identify myself as. Growing up in Fiji, I've always just known that I'm a Fijian. I am a Pacific Islander. There was no question about that. It was a collective identity. So when I came to New Zealand and I was studying here, I went through some the system where it didn't identify me as a Pacific Islander during this COVID times, and I was. It was a massive change, because I just went, this is the first time I'm being told that I'm not Pacific Island enough.
I kind of wanted to look into my own history as well. I was very curious as to finding out about where did my descendants come from, what's my history like, And so I think my curiosity is more at its peak now, because even then, like even with the amount of information that's given, even with the amount of knowledge that like I have at the moment, my current knowledge, it's always still like I'm always still trying to find out more, because even then it's just not enough.
I used to work part-time retail, and then there was a Samoan lady, she was an assistant manager, and she was like, when she found out I was Fijian, she was like, oh, you don't look like you're from the islands or something like that. But she was lovely. I don't think I've faced like any feeling of being other from the Pacific community.
As Fijians, all identify as Pacific Islanders. It's in our food, it's in our language, it's part of our attire. We also, completely have this national identity that we are Pacific Islanders, that we are Fijian. So to come to Aotearoa and be told that I wasn't Fijian enough or Pacific Islander enough was the first time. So yeah, it was a complete shock.
I think in Fiji it's a lot more, everything feels a lot more family oriented and everything, and I think that comes from Pacifica culture just being really strong and having familial ties.
Pacific community here, the entire Pacific community, and particularly the Fijian community here, the diaspora, we've never had that interaction of we, us and them. I think it's always this collective that it starts from home, right? So if our Itoke community accept us as just Fijians, we all are Fijians, then the entire Pacific community naturally addresses us the same way. And I think here in New Zealand, my personal interactions with the Fijian community here is always we're one.
As I'm older, I kind of had to like learn to accept that there's just a lot of history, that I feel like that a lot of people sweep under the rug as well. Well, I would really like to know more about like my past. I would really like to know more about like where my where my great-grandparents came from, where her parents came from, right?
The younger generation, we're all kind of aware of the indenture period of us coming from different regions of India to Fiji. But I think it is a bit of a shame that we don't know too much about it, because I feel like it's important to know where you've come from, and it's kind of, if you want to know more about it, you have to do your own research. It's not something, and if you talk to your family, like they'd be happy to tell you, but it's not a discussed thing. It's not a topic of discussion in Fiji Indian households. Girmit Day, and yeah, I think it should be. I think
you would like to know more.
I would like to know more. Yeah.
My son, who is named after the first vessel that brought my forefathers to Fiji. The first vessel was named Leo. So it's called Leonidas, and it's a corruption of the word Leonidas. The vessel was named Leonidas, and so we named our son after that. My son is named Kushan Leonidas Bandaranath, and so I'm not bitter in so many ways with the system here in New Zealand. If I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have gone, oh, I'm not Pacific Islander enough, right? And when that question arose, many things thereafter led me to know who I am and want to find out who I am. And now the cause is so much more important as I have a son and I pass on my legacy. So you asked if, you know, 5 years, in the last 5 years, if people are talking about it. I don't know if they are not, but I know from this year, from last year, since I've had my son, there is a conversation in my house about it. We actively acknowledge who we are. We appreciate the music of our time, the music being Bhojpuri music, you know, we introduce it to our son in that way. We have little lineages from the time of the Girmit, which I'm wearing right now. It's actually from the Girmit time, my grandmother's jewelry. We have the Leonidas ship, a picture of it here in the house. So we try to keep it active so that when my son is at a stage where he understands and he asks us who we are, we have language around it. We have conversations around it. Yes, it is challenging to talk about these times because the atrocities are not easy. It's tied into the fabric of who we are. But it needs to be discussed. You know, we can't know where we're going if we don't know where we came from. So it's very important in the cause of, you know, for us here.
People don't want to use that word, even though that's, to me, that's frankly what it was. It was frankly slavery. Like when you, like, I don't think there's other way to like put it in words. Like it's frankly in some, you know, in some regards, it should be considered slavery. Because I think that's just the one thing people, especially in conversations, tend to dismiss. Like I just feel like we should call it for what it is. We really need to ask, like, especially our elder generations, you know, do we need to have those conversations? If we don't have those conversations, we're not going to learn from history, and like those things those things tend to repeat themselves, especially if they're not addressed.